Hi, everybody. Welcome on into another episode of the Guardians of the CLE. I know apathy is beginning to set in for many. I can't say it's not on this pod as well, but we thank you for joining us tonight. We'll try to have some fun with the current state of everything going on. And with me here to help break it all down, filling in for my normal co-host, James Ellifritz, we got Derek Dimit with us again. And Derek, the Guardians are free falling a bit. They've lost 5 out of 6 now. I don't have it in front of me, but they got to be one of the worst teams in baseball since the All-Star break. And as we know, their immaculate team of great vibes has been broken up, and apparently there's a lot of feelings about that going on in the clubhouse. I hope you're feeling better than them.
Yeah. It's hard not to. But we were talking, before we hit record, but this is a business, and I know these guys are young. I think they said that currently on the roster, no one's over 30 after the moves. Is that right? Or Jose might be the only 30-year-old, or
Maybe Jose and Syndergaard.
yeah. Okay.
Off top of my head, that's got to be it.
Yeah. So these guys are young. This is, the first minor teardown, but the moves were kind of predictable in a way. Ahmed was gone at the end of the year regardless, so if you can get anything for him, they got an arm in Syndergaard, which made moving Savali a little easier, and his stock was never going to be higher based on his injury history, and so sell high on him. Got a left-handed power bat, which that made moving Bell a little easier. So it seemed like they started with moving Ahmed, and they did that while we were recording last week. And the move to get Syndergaard opened up the door to move Savali, which opened the door to move Bell. So it's like addition by subtraction in a way, and there was a direct correlation in those moves from one to the other.
Yeah, and as they talked about on the broadcast today, Chris Antonetti flew down to Houston. He could probably tell by them being no hit last night, and give Framber Valdez credit. He's one of the best pitchers in the game. He had incredible stuff last night. He 100% deserved that no. But let's be honest, that was some of the most pathetic at-bats. And I think the guys would tell you the same thing. They just lacked all plate discipline. I mean, they were digging holes at Minute Maid Park. They're going to owe a bill for just the holes they put in the ground in the batter's box for all the balls in the dirt they were swinging at. But I think there's just a lot of confusion around these moves. And I don't know if this has to do with lack of communication leading up to the deadline, or where this, because Andre Knott's been talking about it on the broadcast. Hammy's talked about it on the radio, just how low the vibes are with the team, and the clubhouse is uneasy. And that's annoying to fans. That's incredibly annoying, because you know what makes us as fans uneasy is the fact that you couldn't find a way to play better, even for one stretch in 4 months. If you could have found 1 week, even when you went through the easy part of your schedule in May, if you could have found 1 week where you beat the teams you should have beaten and played to the potential I think all of us went into the season expecting, you wouldn't have put the front office in this position. They probably would have held on to Ahmed. Definitely would have held on to Savali. But as you mentioned, hovering around 500, I mean, yeah, sure, you could say at the time of the deadline they were 1 game out of first place. But they're 1 game off the 500 mark. And that's where they've been all season long. And I think Chris Antonetti and the rest of the front office kind of has the same view most of us have taken. The goal should never be to win the AL Central. They're not stupid. They know what division they're in. They know they're in the weakest division in baseball. If you're just sneaking in the playoffs in the AL Central, chances are you're not going to last very long in the playoffs. Your weaknesses are going to be glaring. I don't have a problem with what Chris Antonetti did at the deadline. And then you have, Bob Nightingale tweets oh, the Guardians have their first baseman of the future. Josh Naylor's upset. I guarantee you he's probably one of the guys Chris Antonetti went down to talk to, because Josh Naylor's not the guy you want to be pissing off right now. If you're going to try to sign him to an extension this offseason, which I sure as hell hope they do, because he is the only guy on this team that plays with any bit of fire, and even that's been dimmed lately. We haven't really seen him go crazy lately. I mean, he had a good game in Chicago. He was, he was hype about. But that's one of the problems with this team, and I think it's one of the reasons why they haven't been able to get on a roll this year. It's almost like they got a little cocky last year and they ate a big slice of humble pie this year. It's kind of like my opening thoughts, because I saw a lot of people on Twitter were annoyed just like we are. Like, what do you mean you're uneasy? Why are you this sad? Like, wipe your tears and go take advantage of your opportunity. Because we're finally now getting to look at guys like Gabriel Arias, Tyler Freeman, who unfortunately tweaked the shoulder last night, Brian Rocchio now. I can almost Oscar Gonzalez, do I think he has the hitting profile to last? Probably not, but you get an extended look at him. I guarantee you George Valera, John Kenzie Noel, maybe Micah Pries isn't too far behind, right? So we have all these different guys who many of us have been screaming to look at for a few months now. So it's all about your glass half full, glass half empty perspective. A lot of people are like, oh, they blew it up. They're making moves for next year. Is Aaron Savali, Ahmed Rosario, or Josh Bell the difference in winning a World Series or not this year? I sure as hell don't think so. And I was one of the people screaming from the mountaintops to start Aaron Savali in Game 5 of the ALDS last year, when everybody told me I was crazy and Shane Bieber should go on short rest. And I still stand by that. It should have been Savali. Did it work out? No. But where'd all these Aaron Savali fans come from that are suddenly heartbroken that he's gone? So it's an interesting time, and I think they've reached kind of a fork in the road in the season right now.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like I told you leading up to today, this is make or break time for some of these guys on this roster. Maybe not so much a Rocchio or a Freeman, but Oscar Gonzalez, is he worth a roster spot next year? He had a good game today, but can he, you know, put put a couple months here at the end of the year together where, maybe it's him and Brennan in a platoon role in right field, or do they have to go out on the open market this winter? And like you said, you know, maybe Josh Naylor is pissed because they went out and got a young first baseman, but there's a lot of guys that have made a great career being strictly a DH. So, that door is still open for him. And if you are pissed, take it out on that little white ball coming in at about 90 miles per hour. You know, don't
Yeah. And that's my thing.
pressure.
Like,
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing to me is like, go out and prove the front office wrong. If you're that upset at the moves they made, don't go out and lay an egg.
right. Yeah, that proves the point why they need different players. If you go out there and you're moping and you know the the sky is falling and all of that, so go out there, play with some pizzazz, get out there, do what you can do. And we talked last week about them not having a 4-game win streak, and we talked about that leading into last weekend as the prime example. 1-2 against the Royals to head to the South Side. Took the first game and then laid an egg on Saturday or Friday rather. I guess it
Right.
was a Thursday through Sunday. So yeah, laid an egg on Friday and Saturday, and had to settle for a split against a team that traded two of their starting pitchers I
Yeah.
think it was
Well,
two, a starting pitcher and one of their best relievers to
and
LA.
then
But
Joe Kelly, Reynaldo
yeah,
Lopez, Lucas Giolito. So it
right.
technically was
Yeah,
two
so
starters, two relievers.
and did the White Sox, boo-hoo and, you know, go out there and pout? No, they went out there and they beat the Guardians, who were fighting for first place. So, have that mentality this second half and who knows? You string some wins together, someone on the Twins can get hurt. I know everyone's lauding the Twins for staying put, but that's what the Guardians did last year, and people were mad. Like, why didn't you make a move? And last year, the Twins went out. They made 3 or 4 moves, and it backfired on them. So there's no easy button. This isn't Staples. You don't just hit the easy button and, oh, we made a trade. We're gonna be World Series contenders now. Because even if you go out there and you get the bell of the ball, there's no. And I'm not talking about Josh Bell there, but
No
but
pun
there's
intended.
no guarantee on any of these moves or moves that aren't made. It's what the players that are here after the dust settles, what they do in these situations is what's going to break the story on the 2023 Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, and like that's the thing too. Like Chris Antonetti, because he did kind of like his broadcast rounds today. And he was, kind of getting grilled a little bit by the TV broadcast, Hammy, the whole 9 yards. And obviously, the main question is, why didn't you add anybody? Like, there were no offensive upgrades. And it's kind of what we all thought, acquisition cost. This extra playoff spot, it makes for a very boring trade deadline because a lot of teams think they're contending when they probably aren't. But you have that extra wild card spot to go for. So, some front offices are thinking, let's just hold on to our guys till the offseason and try to make a run at this thing, like the Angels with holding on to Shohei Ohtani. It could have been a really fun trade deadline, but like if I'm Chris Antonetti and you call the Washington Nationals to ask about Lane Thomas, who really we talked about last week is a platoon guy. I'm not giving you Bybee or Williams or Allen. I'm not giving you Brian Rocchio. You can have like Jose Tena and like, I don't know, Cal Quantrill. And like, if you're that far apart, there's just no deal to be made. All this talk about the Cardinals trading Dylan Carlson, nothing happened there. The Orioles held on to all their outfielders, nothing happened there. So, like, my question to people would be who have an issue with the deadline is, what did you want them to do? Because I guarantee you those same people would be freaking out if he traded Tanner Bybee for Dylan Carlson. Like, if there's no deal to be made, there's no deal to be made. But what he did do was get rid of a guy who was leaving in the offseason, get rid of the injury-prone pitcher for a top 30 prospect in baseball or the number 37 or whatever he is. And like Kyle Manzardo, he may be hurt right now, and he's having kind of a down year. He's going through some health issues with his mom, but the dude's got raw power. He could hit over 300. He's got gap to gap type power. Like the dude's going to be a stud, and he could even be a DH. Like we just don't know, but we've been begging for them to go out and get power. And like the fact of the matter is you probably weren't trading Aaron Savali for a major league bat. If this were Shane Bieber and Shane Bieber never got hurt, we're probably talking about a Shane Bieber trade and the return might look a little bit different. But I said this on Twitter last night. Like, am I still crazy for thinking we can win this division? Like, and this is that fork in the road I talked about a minute ago. Minnesota has done nothing but crumble down the stretch. Like every year, except for 2021?
Right.
Like outside of 2021, like they haven't won a playoff game in a decade. Like I'm not sitting here being like, oh, the Twins have such an easy schedule down the stretch. They're running away with it. Because they haven't proven they can do that, regardless of how easy their schedule is. And like you mentioned, they're one like Byron Buxton slip on a sock from just being screwed. Or like they had pink eye going around the clubhouse. Like these random things happen to the Minnesota Twins. And they're not going to be the team that runs away with it. So it's like you just got swept. You just got embarrassed in Houston. Absolutely embarrassed. I mean, you literally should be humiliated going back on that plane to Cleveland. Like Stephen Kwan, what a lazy take to end the game. Stephen Kwan the other night, what a horrific base running blunder. He was out by 2 miles at second base trying to stretch his single to a double. When it's like you would have had runners at first and third with Jimenez and Jose do up. Why are you making the third out at second base in like what, the 8th inning or something? I think it was. It's just this team makes really stupid errors on the bases, and then it's like you let Miles Straw once again hit in the 9th inning with the bases loaded. As we know, good friend of the show, Zach Meisel, asked Tito about it, and Tito starts grilling Zach. Well, why? So you could drive in some runs. Well, we need base runners. We didn't need a home run. Who would you have put there? Literally fucking anybody.
Right, yeah.
Like
Look at the lineup card. Who's still available? They get at the bat.
right, so it's like when we were down yesterday, obviously getting no hit, I wasn't even about to get worked up about literally Miles Straw and Cam Gallagher ensuring you get no hit. Like that was just sealing it in. Here you go, Framber. Not our night. Go celebrate your no hitter. Which I wasn't surprised because he hasn't pinch hit for Miles Straw all year. And it's like this dude somehow keeps coming up in the 9th inning. It's like always the bottom 3 in the 9th inning for this team. And that's the way that it's gone. So it's like, this is kind of a hot take, but I almost wonder if Chris Antonetti was in Houston to talk to Tito too. They're in a transition stage here. Tito has to be on board. He's probably like, look, we are not calling up a top 5 prospect in our system in Brian Rocchio and playing him once every 3 weeks.
Right.
Like, that's not what we're doing here, Tito. Like, we are letting the kids play. We are finally evaluating this middle infield talent. Because, Derek, they're prime, regardless of what happens the rest of this year. And they're at that fork in the road. They could either crumble under the adversity or they could rise up and they could go take off and they could take the division. But past that, all these deadline moves they made set their core up perfectly.
Right.
And like, we don't know if Josh Naylor is going to be a part of that core. He's not extended as of right now. Shane Bieber, probably not a part of that next core. Aaron Savali probably wasn't going to be a part of that next core. So it's like if they can take these final 2 months or so of the season and finally evaluate these guys, you're set up perfectly this offseason to go swing big.
Right.
They know they need power. They know that. And Chris Antonetti has all but said it multiple times. Yeah, we'd like some more offense. Just different ways to phrase it. They're going to be set up to do that. I mean, this could be a really big offseason. I know people are sick of hearing that. But they're finally taking the steps to finally evaluate this young talent we have. So, like, yeah. I'm not mad anymore.
Right. And like you said, we got to find out. Like, they went into this season just resting on the laurels that Oscar Gonzalez was going to come up and be a 275 to 290 hitter, give us 20 to 25 home runs, be that, 5th or 6th hitter in the lineup. And then he came up and he was demoted before Mother's Day, I think. Like,
right.
We can't just sit back and, hope that lightning strikes twice for some of these guys, and finding out who's going to be the ones that we go into spring training next year with them penciled in as the starting shortstop. Is it Rocchio? Is it Freeman? Does Arias, put it all together and keep those two at bay or make them trade pieces? I think there's I wouldn't call it a good chance, but I think out of those 3, only 2 are still in the system come opening day next year, and
yeah.
I know Arias has the ability to play multiple positions, and they've kind of turned him into more of a utility backup guy. But, you can't have Freeman, Rocchio if you're going to have Andres Jimenez, who they re-upped with, earlier this spring. So he's pretty solidified at second base. So that leaves shortstop because Jose Ramirez is your third baseman. And unless you're moving one of them to first, but you just went out and got a guy that's knocking on the door to be your first baseman for the next couple years. So definitely an off season that, a lot of answers will come one way or the other. And now's the perfect time if any of these guys want want to be Guardians for 2024 and beyond, prove it on the field. Like, this is your chance. You're not twiddling your thumbs in Columbus or Akron or Lake County. Like, you're in the show. Show up or show out, or be shown the door.
Yeah, like shit or get off the pot, because I know your conditions are a lot better in the majors than in the minors. You're making more money, and this is your chance to show that you belong. And all year we've been screaming for these guys to get more opportunities. And it's a shame Tyler Freeman tweaked that shoulder again last night on his swing, because I was curious to see how he would look in a nearly everyday type role. And that's not saying that he can't still make something of it. It doesn't sound like it's too serious. He checked out good medically today. So no further damage, which is good news. But that's what this is going to all be about. And, we're going to run into some frustrating times. And Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams are going to look a little gassed sometimes. They're going to walk some guys. Brian Rocchio might hit into a double play like he did today. And it's going to be frustrating, but these guys need to take their lumps this year, because if you're looking to make a deep run next year, you need these guys to get all the experience that they can get this year. And if they have all the talent, and I love what Cam Gallagher said after the game yesterday, like, look, this is who we got in this clubhouse right here. We're not getting any help. This is our team. Let's go out and do our job and win baseball games. And we've been looking for somebody to say something. Like, I'm sorry, but like, I know Jose's not a vocal leader, but like, dude, your team's crumbling around you. You are the franchise player. Like, these are your guys. Like, I get it. Your friend's gone. But like, Ahmed Rosario is dancing in Los Angeles. Like, not to be cold-hearted, but like, he is not thinking about you or this team right now.
Right.
Sure, there's still love there, but like, I'm sure they exchange phone numbers. I'm sure they're going to stay in touch. Ahmed Rosario will be back in Cleveland on Tuesday, August 22nd, in 20 more days.
Right.
And you can talk then. But it's like, right now, you're still only 2.5 games out of first place. Like, no, and like Bob Nightingale, oh, congrats to the Twins on winning the Central. In what universe have they shown that they should be handed a division? Like, Cleveland will always be so disrespected just because they don't spend a lot of money. And like, that's just how it is nationally. Like, it's almost like national guys are just waiting on their demise, which is fine. But like, let's look at recent history. The AL Central runs through Cleveland, besides what, 2021? And like all the way back to before their World Series appearance. Like,
right.
Cleveland has shown that they can play well in the second half under Tito. I do think this was kind of a shock to the system, because you mentioned it earlier in the episode. Like, this is kind of the first trade deadline these guys have ever been through at the major league level. And again, maybe this goes back to lack of communication. They weren't really talked to prior about kind of what to expect, what they're looking to do, things of that nature. I think this off day tomorrow is much needed. They looked better today than they did the last two games. Jimenez got a base hit, which was good to see. You see some guys kind of putting up better at bats, at least. And after last night, with how atrocious they looked at the plate, that's kind of what I was looking to see today. Just show some fight. Like Gabriel Arias driving in the only 2 runs.
Right.
Like, that rally they started was with 2 outs and nobody on base. And all your young guys at the bottom of the order got that going. Right? Brian Rocchio, I think, had an infield single. Oscar Gonzalez had a single. Bo had a walk. Arias 2-run double. So it's like they have all the talent in the world. And again, depending which side of the fan base you're on, some people are going to look at this as selling and tanking and punting on the season, regardless, in spite of no major players being moved. And then you're going to have the side of the fan base who's been begging for these young kids to finally get their opportunity. Because we can all sit and we can complain about Yandy Diaz, right? And all these, and Anthony Santander in the Rule 5 draft, and Junior Caminero, and all these guys that they didn't, Nolan Jones, Will Benson even though jury's kind of still out, but they didn't get a real chance up here. these guys are finally going to get a real chance. So if you move on from them in the offseason, at least you can feel, okay, look, we gave them a chance. They got an opportunity. They just didn't capitalize. So I just think we all need to appreciate the fact that we still get to watch our baseball team for another 2 months, because I don't know about you, Derek, but once mid-December comes around and it's freezing cold with a foot of snow on the ground and the Browns suck like always, I'm going to be like, man, I really wish we were getting no hit by Framber Valdez right now. Or like, I wish I could go back to the trade deadline when all we could do was complain.
Right.
Because I do. Like, baseball is my sport, and I'm going to miss it terribly in the winter. And selfishly, I want to make the postseason so I get to watch my team some more. But I think it'd do these young guys a lot of good if they could sneak in and at least get Bybee and Williams a start.
Yeah, definitely. And, we can talk about Savali and, trading him, but at full strength, he's your fourth or fifth starter. If McKenzie's healthy, he's probably your ace, especially assuming that Bieber will be gone over the offseason. And then you have Williams, Bybee, Allen, and Savali would, slot in either right before Allen or right after him in that fourth or fifth spot. So, if you can trade your fifth starter and get a top 30 prospect that, if everything pans out the way we hope that it does, he's your first baseman or DH for the next 6 or 7 seasons, and all you gave up was a year or two of control on Aaron Savali. That's going to be looked back as a win. It's just kind of this, in the moment, and it's easy to get caught up in the moment, especially in baseball. But really, baseball should be the sport where to look ahead, because you draft a guy in the first round, and at best you maybe see him 2 years later. More times than not, it's 3 or 4 summers after he gets drafted that he's making his way to the major leagues in a role that's everyday ball player. So with that in mind, it's kind of frustrating that some fans have kind of taken that stance. And if you've been a Cleveland baseball fan in the past 20 to 30 years, this isn't the first time that they've sold, at the deadline. They've traded CC Sabathia, they've traded Cliff Lee, they've traded Bartolo Colon, they've, the list goes on and on.
And your top guys are still here.
Right,
Like,
and they didn't move anyone that's in that realm.
think of before 2021. Was it 2021 Jose signed his extension? Or was it 2022? What year is it? Like, I'm in such a vortex. But think of when Jose signed his extension. If he didn't sign that...
2022, I'm pretty sure. I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. But think if he didn't get re-up that contract and he got moved to San Diego. Like, what would the team have just canceled their season? Because it's like
into nothing.
I said it on Twitter yesterday. Like, every other team in the league goes out and they play a game on trade deadline day. Nobody just gets the day off, and it's like they go out and they get hits and they do their job. Our guys look like they need freaking bereavement days. Like, Stephen Kwan and Will Brennan looked like they wanted to cry last night. Like, the body language was just so off. And I just hope this off day tomorrow, getting back home to Cleveland, getting back to their families in their own beds, I just hope they get their heads out of their ass, because the division is still right there for the taking. And, before we get out of here, there's still some uncertainty in the rotation, obviously, with Savali getting moved. And that's kind of like, so what do they do moving forward? Obviously, Chris Antonetti didn't have all the answers today. They're okay with where Bybee, Williams, and Allen are on their innings this year. I mean, their velo's still up. I mean, Gavin Williams looks like he runs out of gas fast, but I really think that's command related. So they should be okay. You have Noah Syndergaard, who looked really good before getting hit with that line drive, which I think that was precautionary. He was probably about done anyways in that game. So you have him, you have a veteran, which is good. And then Cal's not quite ready to come back yet. to be your 5, but he's going to be starting a rehab assignment. Tristan and Bieber just started throwing off a mound. And you got that open 40-man spot, and I think they need a starter on Saturday. Probably Peyton Battenfield would be my guess. And the problem is, which I know this probably made it tough to deal Savali, because it's not like they have anybody at AAA lighting it up right now. I mean, you have Hunter Gaddis, Peyton Battenfield, Zach Plesac, and Joey Cantillo, who a lot of us are very excited to see, but they're all struggling. They're all struggling big time. Peyton Battenfield gave up a few home runs on his last start. They all got ERAs in the 5. So it's not like you can look to AAA and be like, oh, that guy's ready, right? Like you got your 3 guys up here who are ready. So now it's like you might just have to put up with it and make a guy wear it for a game every 5th day and pray that you're still within a couple of games in September and Bieber, McKenzie, or both can come back and give you a couple starts down the stretch, because that's something you can't prepare for. And this team was really lucky with injuries last year. They never really got bit by the injury bug, definitely not on the pitching side. And I mean, they got it bad this year. I mean, from spring training when Tristan got hurt, they never really fully recovered. They never had the 5 guys at the same time that they thought they'd have. So yeah, some of it's poor play, some of it's just really bad luck too. And that's a big reason Josh Bell didn't work out here, right? It was because he was just so unlucky and he just never got it rolling. And advanced stats did say he'd turn it around and be better than he was, but they just had to take the opportunity and dump that contract. So good news being you got the White Sox coming in this weekend. Another team you mentioned just had a fire sale, sold most of their pitching. You got Mike Clevenger and Michael Kopech you're facing for sure. I hope they can figure Mike Clevenger out. Like, I just hope they tattoo him. I'm so tired of him. And then, I mean, it shows both starters as undetermined for Saturday and Sunday for us. So you got Logan Allen versus Mike Clevenger on Friday, and you got to take 2 out of 3. I mean, you just have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it at this point. You got to start beating the teams behind you in the standings.
Right.
You got anything else before we head out of here, Derek?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Twins got Arizona this weekend.
Okay, but Arizona's, a team right in the thick of it in the NL wild card. So, we, like you said, it's just going to come down to beating the teams that you have to beat, and then at least splitting with the teams that are at your level or a little above. Take a 2 out of 3 here. If you fall 1 out of 3 in another series, it'll all even out. But even doing that, they remain a 500 team like they've been all year. So it would be nice to string together, 2 or 3 series wins, and hopefully we can look up and they're in first and they're shocking everyone, and Bob Nightingale has to get a
eat his words. That tweet had like 200 bookmarks.
Yeah. Kevin sent it to us, and I astutely said that Bob's a boob.
Yeah, 100%. Like the Nightingale jinx is back on.
Right.
That might have been the best luck we've gotten all year.
Yeah.
But yeah, after the White Sox come to town, we got Toronto coming in for 4. You go to Tampa Bay for 3. They're set to face Savali in game 1 of that series. That's going to be so weird seeing that dude in another uniform.
Yeah.
You go to Cincinnati for 2. And then you're back home for 4 versus Detroit, 3 versus the Dodgers. Then you head up to Canada and Minnesota. And then Tampa Bay again. I mean, I was waiting to stop till you got like kind of an easy one. I mean, other than Detroit. Like it's a grind. Yeah. Like it's a grind, and we're gonna see what these kids are made of this month because they have the talent. We just got to see. We got to see the kind of fire they play with. So, well, everybody, thank you again for joining us here tonight. Make sure you head on over to the Guardians of the CLE Twitter page at GuardiansOTCLE so you can stay up to date on all the latest episode notes, episode postings, guest updates, anything of that nature. Feel free to DM us anything you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to hear from you. Hopefully we'll be doing live episodes here soon so we can kind of interact with you guys throughout the episodes over here on SteamYard. So stay tuned for that. Any updates concerning that will be posted on the Guardians of the CLE Twitter page. You got me and Derek's handles under our names up here on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. And make sure you head on over to believelandmediallc.com for all your podcasts, written content on all the professional sports teams, college sports now, which we are now expanding. Very exciting stuff. XFL, high school, anything you're looking for, we got you covered. The team does a great job. So make sure you show us some support. And once again, guys, we're cracking on the door of Top 5 Guardians podcast. So make sure you keep rating, keep sharing, keep telling a friend. We appreciate all the support, and we're excited to continue growing with you guys. So, Derek, I want to thank you once again for filling in for James. It's been a blast. I hope next week we have a better week to talk about. Again, I hope returning home does them some good. But in the meantime, enjoy the kids, everybody. Just try and stay positive. We got baseball to watch for 2 more months. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.